guys, Dr. Jason Lamarche here. Thanks for watching this video. Today I have a very, very special guest, PI attorney John Risvold. Thanks for coming, John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Tell me what personal injury is, because a lot of people hear those words, they don't really know. So why don't you just tell people what it is exactly?
Yeah, so I help people who are hurt through no fault of their own. They're in a car accident, they fall, they're the victims of somebody else's negligence or carelessness.
How long have you been an attorney for?
So I've been doing this for about 8 years, and I've been helping people. I started out working for insurance companies actually, and hated it, and realized I didn't like it at all, and started working for people about 4 years ago.
So you want to work for the good guys, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely.
The bad guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're doing this video, because I want people to know that guys like this are the good guys and they're here to help. So we're going to ask them some questions, and if you have any questions, you guys can always comment below and we're going to get these answered for you. So tell me why somebody should have an attorney after a car accident or some kind of injury.
Sure, well, for the same reason that you wouldn't perform surgery on yourself. What I do every day is I wake up and I dress myself in insurance red tape, and I negotiate with insurance companies and argue with insurance companies to try to help my clients recover their medical bills, their lost wages, recover for pain and suffering, for loss of normal life, the things that we're not able to enjoy when you're injured. Oftentimes, insurance companies are looking to quickly settle your case for as little as possible. Interestingly, insurance companies have done study after study after study, and it shows that when you hire an attorney, the insurance company actually pays 3 to 4 times more on a case than if people try to settle it on their own.
So I hope you guys caught that. So, and this happened not to myself personally, but to my wife. When she was in a car accident, very, very quick, they're like, hey, are you hurt? You're not that hurt. We'll give you this settlement. My wife was like, oh, I didn't even know I could get a settlement. It was something that was very, very low. She got like $1,000 after she was rear-ended real hard. And the case value was much higher than that, but of course, they offered her something way less, and they got away with it. So what he's saying is that when somebody's in an accident, like there's a value to that, right? Like no different than if somebody's house burns down. If your house is worth $250,000 and the insurance company comes back and says, we'll give you 50, you would say, why would you give me 50?
Yeah, you'd say absolutely no.
It's worth 250, right? Plus, of course, pain and suffering and all that other stuff. But that's what they try to do, and people don't know this, but you are, I don't know if I should say this, but are people, would you say they're entitled to a settlement after an injury?
Absolutely they are. The goal of insurance and the goal of personal injury attorneys is to put you back in the position you were in before you got hurt, before you had pain. You're living your life without neck pain from a rear-end car crash, for instance, right? And now all of a sudden you wake up and every day you have neck pain. The only way our system can compensate you is with money. I mean, I can't take your pain away. I wish we could. With great treatment, great doctors, we can improve your pain and hopefully it goes away. But for all that time that you live with it, the only way we get you compensated is by giving you money. And that's what insurance is for. That's what it's supposed to be for.
So one of the more common questions that I get is when somebody's injured in a car accident, most people will know that the insurance company will pay for their bumper, they'll pay for the fender, they'll pay for the vehicle. But most people do not know that insurance companies will pay for your injury, probably because they never tell you when they call you after the accident. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So within about 24 to 48 hours after an accident, an insurance company is going to call you, and it's usually not your insurance company. And they're trying to do a few things. They're trying to gather evidence to make sure that they can build a case against you. They're trying to get your statement so they can use your own words against you.
So what you're saying is that they're not for you?
No.
The insurance company's against you, so they're not the good guy.
No matter how many billions of dollars they spend on marketing to tell you they're on your side, no matter how much they spend to say we're on your side, we've got your back, we're a good neighbor, that's not the case. The goal is to pay you as little as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they don't have to do what's actually fair and right, which is compensate you fully.
Yeah, that's interesting. That was a good one. So let's see here. How long, I think we said this, but people, you said 24 to 48 hours, right, is when people should call an attorney?
I think you should call an attorney as soon as you can after an accident. I would say there are 3 really important phone calls you need to make after an accident. The first one is 911. You absolutely need to call and make a police report and go by ambulance to an emergency room if you're seriously injured. Number 2 would be to call your own insurance and let them know that you're in an accident so they can start working on your property damage. And then number 3 would be to call a doctor, or call a doctor. Number 3 would be to call a lawyer right away. And then the fourth thing you need to do is see a doctor as soon as possible.
So a lot of people after accidents, they'll say, well, I didn't really need to go to the hospital. I didn't feel hurt. I didn't need to go to a doctor. I didn't feel hurt. And then as weeks go on, they kind of start feeling themselves tighten up, right? So, I mean, that is something insurance companies will use against you, right? They'll say, well, you didn't have symptoms at the scene of the accident. Why do you have them now? It is very common for somebody to have delayed symptoms, a delayed onset after an injury. Happens all the time. And not just with car accidents, but a lot of different injuries that people get. So like you said, one of the first things you should do is get checked out by a doctor, preferably emergency room. If not the ER, definitely a doctor, either myself, your family doctor, whoever it is, and just make sure it's documented.
Yeah, that's the number one thing is you have to see a doctor right away to document not only that you were in an accident, but any symptoms that you have afterwards. Because like you said, a lot of symptoms, especially in car accidents are a great example of this. A lot of symptoms don't pop up right away. Concussion is a good example, right? A brain injury is not going to show up right away sometimes. You're not necessarily going to have those symptoms in the ER sometimes. And ERs aren't really set up to diagnose and treat concussions.
Not at all, at all.
So those symptoms are going to appear later, but the insurance company is going to say, well, it can't possibly be caused by this accident because you didn't have it the second after the car accident and there's no documentation that you had it the second after the car accident.
With the ER, like you said, they're not set up for that, right? The ER's job is to make sure you're not dying pretty much. Make sure there's no serious fracture that's going to potentially sever your spinal cord. There's no internal bleeds. There's nothing seriously wrong, meaning like life-threatening. And if you don't have that kind of injury where it's life-threatening, then you're okay to them. But it doesn't mean you're okay, and it does not mean you're not injured. So a lot of patients that I've had, they were released and like, you're fine, and they weren't fine because they had headaches, dizziness, confusion, problems sleeping, neck pain, migraines, whatever it is. But they were released by a doctor saying they're fine. But just understand that doctor's not there to help fix their concussion or their neck pain. The doctor's there to rule out life-threatening injuries. And if they do that, they've done their job.
And that's why every really good emergency room, you'll see instructions to follow up with your primary care doctor. That's exactly why you're supposed to do that, is because they're not set up that way. And you guys are. You guys are set up to do those things and make sure that the patient gets into the right sort of system of care to get better.
So one of the other things is people ask the question, well, it was my fault. My neck's hurt, but I'm the one who hit them, right? So what do they do then?
Thankfully, in Illinois, a lot of insurance policies, like your own car insurance, has something called MedPay. It can vary depending on what kind of policy that you have, but usually people have about $5,000 or $10,000 worth of MedPay.
You can get as much MedPay as you want.
True.
Right, you can, and it's not very expensive. I mean, you can get I think I have $25,000 for MedPay, but you could get up to $100. And it's definitely something you want to have for multiple reasons. If you have bad health insurance, number one, if you have no health insurance, right. So then you're covered.
So I recommend to everybody in terms of when they get their own car insurance, they have $25,000 in MedPay. They have at least $100,000 for bodily injury, and there's two reasons for that. One is because medical bills are the number one way people go bankrupt in America, period. That you can't afford to pay your medical bills. This is money set aside specifically for an accident, specifically for an injury that you can use. And then with bodily injury, you don't want anyone coming after your own personal assets, your home, your car, your retirement account. So you have this $100,000 that's set aside that can pay for serious damages, serious injuries if you cause somebody else an accident.
So now with the settlement, right? I've heard people come in saying, well, my friend told me that, I can get 20 grand for this, or I can get 80 grand for this. How do you know, what goes into a settlement?
Sure. So we start with, there's two sides to a settlement, two sides to every settlement. There are your economic losses, your dollar losses, and then there are the intangible non-economic losses.
Right, so the car, right?
Yeah, the car, your property damage. Your medical bills, the cost of what your medical bills are, and any lost wages that you have. Those three make up your economic damages. So we want to make sure that all of that is recovered. The total cost of your bills, the total cost of your lost wages. The other side of that is the law allows you to be compensated for pain, suffering, loss of normal life, disfigurement, annoyance and aggravation, discomfort, anything that changes the way you live your day-to-day life.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be major. It can be as simple as, I have pain climbing the stairs.
Right.
It's tough to turn my head to the right when I drive a car because of my neck injury. My life is different now than it was before.
Yeah.
And that's how.
So you said disfigurement. So even things like losing a tooth.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
A scar on a visible area of your body, things like that. But he said the law allows that. So, I mean, you are entitled to it.
Right.
You're paying for that with your insurance company. And if you don't know that, then the insurance company they're winning again.
Those are the damages the insurance company does not want to pay. They do not want to pay any of the intangibles. They will do everything in their power to drive those numbers way, way down. A lawyer's job is to make sure that you are fairly and justly compensated for the true value of what you've lost, the true dollar value of what's been taken from you.
So now with the settlement, if I'm hit by somebody's private vehicle versus a vehicle of business, a commercial vehicle,
Sure.
Is there a difference there?
Well, there can be two big differences.
Okay.
The first one is there's going to be more insurance available for you to seek a recovery from a commercial vehicle usually than a private vehicle.
Right.
So sometimes we are sort of capped by however much insurance is available. That determines how much we're able to recover in certain cases. There are exceptions to that, but that is the usual course.
Right.
The other side of that, the other difference really is that if you're rear-ended by a Honda Civic, it's not going to
Versus
do
a semi,
it's not going to do nearly as much damage to your body as a 10-ton truck is going to, UPS truck, right?
Makes sense.
They cause more serious injuries and
Right.
they can be catastrophic.
Which
often.
brings up a really important point, right? I mean, one thing that the insurance companies will always argue is, well, they only rear-ended you at like 50 miles an hour and there's only like a little dent in your bumper, so that should mean that you're not hurt. I know that's not true.
I think that's
They know that's not true.
Right. The
But
science
they're gonna
knows that's not true.
The science knows
Right.
that's not true, but they're going to use that as their arguments. Like, how could you possibly be hurt? You were barely hit, right? So all that stuff is they try to make people feel bad. They have them questioning themselves, like, well, maybe I'm not that hurt. Maybe I'm just kind of in shock,
Right.
right? And so they don't want to deal with the whole thing sometimes, and they just sign off on the case. And again, the insurance company wins, and the person who's injured loses when that happens.
Absolutely true. And the insurance company has a name for these cases. They call them missed cases, minor impact soft tissue.
Okay.
And so they categorize your case. If you have a broken bone, your case goes into a different category than these missed cases.
Right.
A really interesting example I can give you is I have a client who she was in a 4 or 5 mile an hour rear end accident, and a year after the accident, after she'd exhausted all sorts of conservative treatment, chiropractic care, physical therapy, even some pain injections, she now needs a cervical fusion surgery. She never would have needed that surgery before the accident.
And there are numerous research studies out there. I've seen some that say you can get damage, like serious damage, as low as 9 miles an hour.
I've seen as low as 4 miles an hour.
Okay, 4 miles an hour.
Yeah. I was just listening to Arthur Croft, who you know very well, who's the expert in this sort of thing, and he was saying he's seen studies recently as low as 4 miles an hour that can cause these serious injuries. 4 miles an hour is all it takes. There may not be a dent or a scratch on your car, but if it can do damage to your car, the metal and the body of your vehicle, imagine what it can do to your spine. Our bodies are just not built to be in these kinds of accidents.
Right.
They're just not.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine people talk about, contact sports like football, right? Or hockey or something. Mm-hmm. Sure, those are forceful.
Yeah.
But I mean, imagine you're getting hit by something that weighs 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 pounds.
Right.
I mean, there's no way your body has the ability to tolerate that amount of force. So even if it is 4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, that's a lot of force going into your body. Whatever the accident was, just what I really want for patients is to know that it doesn't matter how low of a force that they were hit at. Yeah. It's still a lot of force, right? And even with Art Croft is a whiplash leading expert in the world. I know they've done videos and they had people in the vehicle and they would just bump them from different angles and they would say, well, do you feel like you moved at all during the impact? Right. And they go, no, I didn't move at all. But of course they have slow motion cameras on them, and even at low force, you see them just kind of they get whipped. You get little whiplashes just from low impact collisions, 5, 6 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, like John's saying.
Right.
And those, so a really important
those
point
don't
there.
seem like they're major injuries, but whiplash injury can be devastating.
Absolutely.
It can cause a whole host of problems that can last years and years and years. You can
Or
end
a
up,
lifetime.
right, you can end up with chronic pain from whiplash.
Yep.
They're not minor cases. They're not minor injuries by any means. And you really need to see a doctor as soon as possible. You really need to get checked out, and you need to get treatment.
So with injuries too, I know you use the word minor. It kind of reminded me of when people use the term mild traumatic brain injuries, right? So we've pretty much gotten rid of that M, and it's now TBI, traumatic brain injury, because there's no such thing as a mild brain injury. A brain injury is a brain injury. I'm just trying to downplay it, of course.
Right.
But so even in car accidents, when you get rear-ended, I mean, the science of it shows that it's just like objects in motion stay in motion, right? So it's like the body stays stuck into the seatbelt. The head goes forward. When the head stops, the brain keeps going forward, and it actually smashes into the skull, which is why people get concussion, even from low impact collision.
Right. I see a lot of clients who come to me and they say, I've got vision issues after a crash, and my mood is totally different. And I immediately say, brain injury. Because when your head goes back, the back of your brain hits the back of your skull, and that's the part of your brain that directs your vision, right? And the front of your brain, is where you get a lot of your emotional responses from. And so you can have emotional disruption when you are whipped forward and your brain, flies into the front of your skull. You don't need to hit the steering wheel or the inside of the car or anything like that to get a brain injury. Mild. There's no such thing as a mild brain injury. Any injury to the supercomputer that runs your body is not in any way, shape, or form mild. It could never be.
Yeah, people are noticing issues with confusion, dizziness, headaches, any kind of issues as far as like insomnia, obviously neck pain, a lot of different symptoms with concussion. I've had some people say, well, it's probably just from stress. Like I was really stressed after the accident. It might be part of it potentially, right? Stress doesn't make anything better. But most people don't know that you can get concussion from car accidents. So if you feel any of those symptoms, please think of that. It's very, very important because brain injuries can last a lifetime. There are things we can do that actually help heal your brain injury. And as far as like the settlement goes, if you have a brain injury and it takes longer, that's something that we actually put into the case, into the settlement, because it shows that there's a greater level of injury there.
Well, and the other thing that people need to understand, and brain injuries is a good example, is your case is going to take a long time by most measures when you hire a lawyer. Most car accident cases that come into my office, they take, I would say, a year or so to resolve. And the reason is because your lawyer is working with your doctors to make sure that you get the best care possible. And your doctors are making sure that you're treating until your pain is gone. And we're also, investigating and working up your case to make arguments to the insurance company that your case has significant value and it has, an opportunity to settle. And good lawyers, what we do in our office is we prepare every single case as if it's going to be put in front of a jury. And by doing that, the insurance company knows if I don't settle this case, there's a huge risk to me if I don't do the right thing. And that's the way I think any good lawyer should do it. But it takes time and patience.
Yeah, I guess all these questions that I'm asking, John, are pretty much questions that have been asked by me from patients. I'm like, perfect type of questions for the expert here. So a year is pretty average for most people. Some people will expect everything to be settled as soon as the treatment is done. Not realistic, right, for the most part?
It is if you want a low settlement.
There you go.
When the treatment is done, that's when the real negotiations begin. And that's when the real sort of hardball gets played. And, I go to work dealing with the insurance company and laying out the case for them, putting all my cards on the table and saying, look, this is how we're going to beat you. And if you want to get beat, then so be it. But otherwise, you need to do what's fair and what's right. That can take some time to do right. It also takes time because insurance adjusters are notoriously difficult to get a hold of when they're not trying to quickly settle your case and give you a small check and make you go away.
But they're really nice before you get an attorney. And as soon as they find out you have an attorney, then they stop calling you and they stop,
They're not bad people, but the system is set up in a way that they're incentivized, they're bonused by paying you less money. The less money they pay you, the more money's left over for the insurance company, and the insurance company can pay them a bonus. And they advance in their careers by paying you what your case is not worth, by paying a small settlement, and by making sure that they churn those small settlements out and people don't get fair compensation.
Some of the things that go on in the world of personal injury, I mean, people just have to be aware that kind of like healthcare, there's corruption, there's bad people, there's people that are just trying to make money and not actually get what's fair, get the patient well and everything, right? So I mean, I think people need to know that when they go to the hospital, there are some people there that literally try to just poach them in the parking lot. Like, hey, you were in a car accident, call us now. And these people, they don't really get treated as patients. They get treated just as like a dollar amount. I mean,
they're a commodity.
They're a commodity completely. So I mean, they just send them to all these different doctors, and it's just, they look at what their policy would cover, and if it covers something, then they're going to try to get as much as they possibly can. Not even considering how the patient's doing. I mean, I know I had a patient that was sent to me by somebody, and he was seeing a pain doctor. I won't mention his name, but the pain doctor on the first visit said, you need epidurals, trigger point injections, and you need to burn your nerves.
Red flags.
So 3 procedures on the first visit.
Yeah.
The guy hadn't even gone through a month of rehab, and he was feeling better, you know, with the treatment that we were giving him, but that was still offered to him. So he asked me, and I told him absolutely not. Like, why would you do that? If you're getting better with conservative measures, there's no point in doing that. Right. So people just need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I agree. There's bad doctors. There's bad lawyers.
There's bad everything.
There's bad everything. I think
everything.
The difference I've noticed is when you make a personal connection with your patient or your client. I think that is when you can tell that you have a good doctor, or when you have a good lawyer. I give every client my cell phone number.
Right.
And I say, call me night and day, call me on the weekends, right? And my wife's probably not thrilled about that, but my clients love it because they know they can get access to me anytime that they need something. And some of them even say, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you. It's like, you're not bothering me. I work for you, right? And they are. And that's the difference, right? You do the same thing, don't you?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. On day one with every single patient that we have, I give them my cell phone number and I tell them, you know, if you need anything, just call or text me. Most will just call the office, but sometimes, of course, you know, when they need you, they have you there. But the last question that I asked him, as far as like the ethical part, like how there's good people and bad people, that's the real reason why we're doing this, is because I just saw so much bad stuff in this world, and I just felt like I had to get the truth out there to people, because I know what we do helps, I know what we do is ethical, and I know a lot of other doctors who do things ethically as well. And attorneys.
The same with us. I mean, I think if a doctor or a company or a lawyer is approaching you in the waiting room of a hospital and trying to get you to sign paperwork, you're probably speaking to the wrong person.
Big red flag, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Okay, great. So John, thanks for coming. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Do you have anything to offer the viewers as far as consultations or anything?
Absolutely. So anytime you're injured at all, or you know someone that is injured, give me a call. I offer free consultations, and the other thing that we do is we work on what's called a contingency, which means I don't ever bill by the hour. You're never going to get a bill from me. I'm never going to ask you for money. I only ever get paid if I win your case, period. From the very moment you meet me until the end, when we are able to settle your case or win your case in front of a jury, the only time I get paid is if I win. And so I work really, really hard to make sure that your case is given the attention it deserves and it's valued the way that it should be, not the way an insurance company wants it to be.
So as far as when a patient first calls you or a client first calls you, there's no upfront fee?
None. And there never will be. No one in my office will ever ask you for money, ever. We only get paid if we're able to win.
The biggest fear when it comes to people hiring an attorney is they think it's going to cost them a lot of money. So you just heard it from John himself. Do not be scared. I mean, you need an attorney after an injury. So again, thanks, John. And
thank you very much. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Thank you.